You know, I'm going to give you a history lesson.
We got some dumbass motherfuckers floating around this country.
Stop laughing! And when I do, start fucking.
Also, y'all did some nasty ass jokes on my ass, too.
Funny jokes and unfunny jokes come out of the same birth.
You fucking guys are unbelievable.
Why are you laughing?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Why Are You Laughing, a history comedy podcast. And today, I'm pleased to introduce to you Brian Regan's I Walked on the Moon, the first comedy album, CD, whatever, that I would replay over and over and over again, and where I kind of realized I was a stand-up fan. Like, I would watch Comedy Central. I mentioned that all the time. The premium blends and Comedy Central Presents and shit that they would play over and over and over again. And for some reason, I was like, oh, I just like funny things. And then when a buddy, actually my older brother's friend, gave me, he was just done using it, and he was playing it in his car once, and I was laughing. And he gave me I Walked on the Moon, and I would listen to it. There was a point where I would probably listen to it 3 times a day. Like, I was just replaying it over and over again. So definitely my first favorite special.
Yeah, that was me with Jim Gaffigan, but I saw him on Comedy Central, and then you watch, what is it, Beyond the Pale, and then I watched that over and over again. I love the two of them. I think they're very similar also.
Well, I mean, just based on the fact that they're both clean also, but like we say about Nate Bargatze, clean, but you wouldn't necessarily know it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, they're not replacing words where you're like, why doesn't he just say fuck there? Like, it seems very natural. We'll get into it, but first I do want to remind you guys, big reminders here, that there's a lot going on Patreon. So what we want to do is go to blindmike.net and you first peruse the free links. Apple, Spotify, YouTube. The YouTube seems to be cooking these days. So look at all of those, and then if you like what you see there, then go to the Patreon, because we got a bunch of stuff up there. The Pablo Francisco mini episode is up there right now. By the time you're hearing this, I believe Opie versus Jim should be on there. A lot of people seem to enjoy the Opie and Anthony episode and requested Opie versus Jim. So that will be a Patreon exclusive. So if you want to hear that, you have to be on the Patreon. Just $5 a month. It's not going to kill you. Come on. Also, shout out to Trust the Prophets on Twitter. I think this guy has like a gambling show or something. Mm-hmm. They focus on like horse racing, it seems like. So check them out if you're into that. But I mentioned them because he's the guy that's been making our thumbnails and does a very good job. We're starting to be a professional operation here, it seems like.
Yeah, we've gone Hollywood.
Yes.
That's what people keep telling me.
Yes, Hollywood. That's what defines Hollywood, a YouTube thumbnail.
You guys have a thumbnail. Wow.
It's also bizarre that affects the YouTube algorithm, but I don't know how it all works, but this guy seems to know what he's doing. So
everyone on YouTube has ADD and they see bright colors and they go, I got to click that.
Yeah. So check out Trust the Prophets as well. But yeah, Regan is, I said this about, I forget who we were talking about, maybe Hedberg or someone like that. It's hard to say underrated because he comes up a lot in that discussion. You know what I mean? Attell, same way, where like if you bring up who's the most underrated comic, you're like, oh, Dave Attell. And it's like, well, if everyone says that, is he really underrated? You know?
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel about Brian Regan. But it is very weird. Like, we did the, about a year ago, we did the Is Jerry Seinfeld Funny episode, which, of course, the answer ultimately is yes, but I don't think he's one of the greatest stand-ups of all time. Where I would say Regan, you could make an argument, is kind of in that discussion, or at least one of the best stand-ups of his generation. And I think is a far funnier stand-up than Seinfeld.
Yeah, Seinfeld, his impact on comedy was showing you could do more than comedy, maybe. But
right, having the greatest show of all time.
Yeah.
But it's weird that Regan never and maybe he has stuff that failed that I don't know about.
Doesn't he have a show called like Louder Milk or something?
Yeah, he did some sketch show on Netflix a few years ago that I don't think really took off. So like I said, maybe he's had stuff fail, but it seems like a guy who got popular in the, late 90s, early 2000s. It's weird that they never found like a sitcom or something for him. But he's a guy, much like Attell, that really made his bones in stand-up. Like, him as a stand-up and nothing else really, and he seems, I don't know if he's content with that or not. The one funny thing that I do always hear about Regan is that he's a much darker person off stage.
Oh yeah. If you listen to him on podcasts, he'll swear and stuff. He's not exactly the same, I would say. They
would do, he used to go on Opie and Anthony all the time when they were on WNEW. And they would talk about that. They would say, get a few drinks in Regan, and he's a completely different guy. And Anthony would do the impression and go, here's what I think about the juice. Yeah, so I don't know if we'll do a Brian Regan dedicated episode. I'd have to, I don't know. I know hardly any. I know he lives in Nevada. That's about all I know about the guy. So I'd have to, do some research and see if there's a full episode there. But I figured a good Brian Regan episode would be like I said, the first comedy album that I really enjoyed, I Walked on the Moon. So let's just get into it. We'll talk more about it as it goes along, but let's hear the opener.
There it is.
Oh, I should mention, by the way, this came out in 2004.
Yes.
And this was a DVD as well, but me and Craig had his timeline all fucked up because Epitome of Hyperbole is probably his most well-known album. Mm-hmm. And the Big Yellow One is the Sun bit, which is like his, Hot Pockets or the Machine bit that people yell out for. We think that was on Brian Regan Live in 97. But Regan's the kind of guy, sort of like the run that Louis had with Shameless, Hilarious, and Chewed Up, where he put out enough stuff in a short time period where you're confused about which one's which,
Right.
I think Burr had a similar run like that too in the early 2010s.
Yeah, because I thought the Big Yellow One was the Sun was on Standing Up,
which was much later. Yeah,
which was after this special.
And he doesn't get enough credit. Me and Craig were talking about this before the show. Right now, everyone's talking about Louis just did a live stream on his website from Madison Square Garden. Mm-hmm. Live streamed his full hour. And Chris Rock is doing that for Netflix in, I think, coming up in March, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And everyone's like, wow, this is revolutionary. And I guess because it's on streaming services, that's the difference where it stands out. But Regan did this 5 or 6 years ago on Comedy Central. He did a live special.
Right. And it was great.
And it was just at the time where people stopped watching Comedy Central. So no one gave a fuck.
It was right at the end of their almost
at the end of their glorious run. Yeah.
Well, they had a glorious run. Then it went away for a minute. Then it kind of came back. And that's when this was. And then it was gone again and never going to be the same.
All right. Let's get into I Walked on the Moon here.
I appreciate that. Thank you, man. Feels great. I'm feeling good. I actually just recently had to go to the emergency room, though, and I had some stomach virus thing. I almost called an ambulance. That's weird, even considering calling an ambulance for yourself. You call ambulances for other people, right? What are you supposed to say about yourself? Can you come get me? Yeah, I don't feel so good. Just come on in, I'll be lying on the floor. I'm just looking at the phone going, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to do. It was at night, so I drove myself to the emergency room. That's a nice relaxing drive. No, after you. Merge, everybody, merge. I'm only imploding. So I pull up at the entrance to the emergency room. No valet parking. I mean, If that's not the biggest oversight in our solar system. If there's ever a time where you want to go, can you park this because I need to collapse immediately? No, I'm circling around a parking lot. Can I park there? I think I'm going to die. I'm dying too. Okay, go ahead. I'll go up a couple levels.
He has such a unique voice that makes it easy to imitate's the wrong word, but like unknowingly imitate. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm sure there were a ton of stand-ups around this time that even without their own knowledge were doing that kind of cadence and everything because it's so unique, but also like easy to do, easy to fall into. Does that make sense?
For sure. 1,000%.
Yeah. He's, but yeah, his inflection and the observations, and I mean, this is the key to any, observational comic, but like the idea, especially for me, because I don't drive, obviously. So the relating to, oh yeah, if I had to call the hospital, I would have to call an ambulance. Like if I was alone, what the fuck would I do? It seems like something so obvious. I mean, like I said, that's the point of any observational comic, but the thing that's nice about Brian Regan, and I'll probably compare him a lot to Seinfeld throughout this, but like to use Seinfeld as the example, Seinfeld and even says in that Talking Funny HBO special, he says like, the comedian is supposed to be above the audience. Whereas Regan is probably smarter than most of the people in the audience, but presents himself as a moron.
Right.
Which makes him more relatable,
Exactly. Yeah, no, I thought you were going to say like an equal, and I was like, no, he presents himself like a fucking idiot.
He presents himself as a driveling idiot. When he's actually clearly a fairly intelligent guy.
Yeah. The voice doesn't help either.
Still doing it, by the way. On the Rocks came out 2 years ago, maybe, on Netflix. 2021?
Yep. Yeah, 21. What I said.
And I saw him at the Wilbur. Like, it's the interesting thing about Regan, and this goes back to like when I got into him, I guess. But we saw him here at the Wilbur, and they had no waitresses or anything working, like because they weren't expecting a ton of alcohol sales. You're like, that's odd. I wonder why. And then you look around, and like. A quarter of the audience is like 12-year-olds.
Right.
Families just bring their kids because it's so easy to listen to.
Yeah. He's one of those comics everyone can go see.
Yeah.
And, they'll really worry about substance,
Yeah, right. All right. What's next?
Next we have Rate My Pain. Rate Your Pain.
Oh, of course. Yes. And this is literally what I think of every time this is asked now.
So they check me into my luxurious half room. There's a curtain down the middle with a mystery patient on the other side. And he's moaning over there. Thinking, man, they're never going to help me with him moaning like that. So I got to out-moan him, Quit moaning, we're all hurting. The whole floor is like a haunted choir. It's got to be hell to work in this environment. So I'm killing time writhing. Nurse finally comes in. How are you doing tonight? I'm on a gurney. You have a painkiller or something? This is killing me. So she goes, how would you describe your pain? It's killing. I don't know if you remember that. Ouch. What, are we playing that pyramid game? Excruciating. Horrific. Would rather have shards of glass in my eyes. How do I convey this to you? So she asked, how would you rate your pain? 4 stars. 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. She goes, how would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst? Well, you know, saying a low number isn't going to help you. Oh, I'm a 2. Maybe the high 1s. You could give me a baby aspirin and cut it in half. Maybe a Flintstone vitamin and I'll be out of your hair. You can go 10 to all the 3s and 4s and such. If anyone's saying such ridiculous numbers.
I mean, there's a lot of examples there of why, like I said, he can relate to any age. Because even if you just dissect that hospital bit, he's relating to adults about what a miserable place the hospital is. But if you're, you know, an 8-year-old, you're like, look at this silly guy making these noises, moaning and fucking yelling.
Yeah. Like everyone can follow along. That's the beauty.
Yeah, very easy to relate to. And then another guy we don't mention enough when we talk about the clean comics is one of my favorites, who I always forget about. But I think Gary Gulman has probably 4 or 5 of my favorite bits of all time. Like, I think he's a brilliant comic. And something I like about Gary Gulman is his word choices. And I think I would say a big, you know, I don't know if I would say influence, but definitely someone who has that in common is Regan, who, again, like, he portrays himself as the idiot, but he'll use words that wouldn't be the first thing to come to mind. Like when he says, I'm writhing. Like, that's not the first word you would go to for pain or whatever.
I just like rate your pain. 4 stars. Like,
2 enthusiastic thumbs up.
Just picturing like a Yelp review for his pain.
Yeah. And he can't, like, that's the other thing, is he masks this like sarcasm and disdain for society.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't think of him as a wise ass or a sarcastic guy, but he clearly is. He just masks it in like, I'm the idiot here, and all the, you know, the kind of, like I said, frills around it, I guess.
Right.
By the way, I think the comment we got on the last one of these we did, which I thought was funny, just the album reviews, is like someone that probably didn't hear the first one we did, like didn't listen to the Eddie Murphy Delirious, so they didn't know what it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, you have an hour-and-a-half discussion about Patrice O'Neal's hour-long special? And I was like, well, yeah, kind of, I guess. So
basically, we're just having fun, guy.
Yeah. I'm remembering my childhood, you know?
Yeah. The first one we did was Dice.
Oh, of course. That was the first episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. This is I'm an 8.
So I said, I guess I'm an 8. She goes, oh, okay, I'll be back. I'm like, oh, I blew it, man. I ain't getting nothing with 8. But she surprised me. She comes in, she goes, the doctor told me to give you morphine immediately. And I'm like, morphine? That's what they gave the guy in Saving Private Ryan right before he died. Okay, I'm a 4. I'm a 0. I'm a negative 11-teen. Morphine. So they gave me morphine. Wow. All I know is about 15 minutes later, just for the hell of it, I was like, I'm an 8 again. Guess who's an 8? And they finally checked me out. I'm walking down the hall going, say 8, say 8, say 8, say 8. Happy 8 day. Did you get some 8? Did you get any 8?
And that's what you talk about, being clean but not noticing it.
Mm-hmm.
That bit, I think, is what people mean, where what he's talking about there is wanting to get fucked up on morphine.
Right.
He just wants to be zooted out of his mind.
Yeah.
But it's not presented that way. It's presented in a clean fashion. The same way, you know, Seinfeld was able to do an entire episode about jerking off.
Right.
Without, I mean, clearly you know what it's about, but they never say masturbation, jerking off, do the hand motion. There's nothing crass about it, really. But you know what they're trying to convey to you.
Yeah, they'll be like, I'm out. And you're like, oh, they were just jerking off.
And that's the one thing I think Seinfeld has a point on is like, I don't think clean comedy is any funnier than dirty comedy or vice versa. But it is harder, for sure.
Yeah.
Just by in its nature, you're limiting yourself on what you can say.
Right, and then if you go over the top dirty, oftentimes to me it comes across like almost like a crutch or something. Like it's not you being funny; you're just saying a word no one was expecting. That's brutal.
Yeah, and I think early Jim Norton is victim of that
for sure.
Where he's like, "Let me just bring up rape," and then I think he evolved over time. But yeah, that's what a lot of that's what, when we talk about shit not holding up from the '90s. Howard Stern, there was a ton of Howard Stern stuff like that.
Right.
Where it's like, well, they're just saying ass and tits. There's no punchline. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing inherently funny about this.
It wasn't until Howard started making fun of the blacks that that it really meant something.
That was Daniel Carver. You're mistaken.
Right.
All right.
Next, we got prevention.
Oh, okay.
He's a good doctor, I think, I told him I get heartburn sometimes, so he goes and gets me a list of things that cause heartburn. I'm looking at the list and I'm like, I already know this. I know how to get it. That's like going into the hospital with a cannonball wound and they show you a list. Here's how you get cannonball wounds. I have a cannonball wound. It's gaping. Do you have a tube of cannonball wound ointment? Number one, do not stand directly in front of a cannon. How true that is.
I don't know why his voice always reminded me a little of Will Ferrell for some reason. I don't know if you pick up on that at all.
From SNL.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I can see it.
But, we talk about influences and we've already mentioned a few. But one I think of a lot, there's definitely a lot of similarities. I mean, they're both clean and like family friendly, but Sebastian Maniscalco with the bill, you can hear there's shit Brian Regan is doing physically there that the audience is reacting to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Maniscalco's whole thing. Like any Sebastian fan, if you like, because I wouldn't say I'm a fan necessarily. It's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, well, because I'm blind. So people are like, that makes sense. Very visual. And so it's like, there is something about, and it's hard to knock Sebastian because he sells out arenas all over the place.
Right. He'll do a whole
there's obviously
weekend
some of what he's
Madison
doing.
Square Garden.
Yeah. And so, but I think Regan is just a guy who perfected both of those, where what he's saying and the observations he's making are kind of unique and very funny. And were copied a lot, by the way. I think Regan's kind of a victim of that too, where a lot of the subjects or a lot of his takes on things were kind of stolen throughout the years, and not stolen in the way we've talked about in other episodes. I just mean like Brian Regan broke, cracked the safe on an observation, and then a lot of people did bits in the same vein. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I don't know who came first with it, but like Gaffigan's audience member voice.
Right.
Or even Mencia's like dirt voice is basically Regan's.
I would even go back to Dice when he does
the woman.
Oh, Dice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there's like I said, that's not theft in the way that
right.
that we've talked about, in the way that Dennis Leary does it. But it is like, Brian Regan, I think, cracked a lot of molds, and then other people benefited from what he discovered, basically.
For sure. 1,000%. Next, we got Fig Newtons.
This, this is it's a funny example of how memory works. If you said, "Oh, I love Brian Regan's cookie bit," I would have been like, "Oh," or he talks about Oreos in this. I just completely, and I thought Fig Newtons was a different bit because I remember him saying Fig Newtons, and I remember him saying "by the sleeve," but I thought they were two separate bits. But let's hear it.
Oh, so my doctor, he told me to watch what I'm eating, told me to read food labels. I'm in the store reading a Fig Newtons label. I've always liked Fig Newtons. I'm trying to see if it's okay to eat them, and everything looked fine, the fat content, everything. I looked at the serving size, 2 cookies. Who the hell eats 2 cookies? I ate Fig Newtons by the sleeve. 2 sleeves is a serving size. I open them both and eat them like a tree chipper. Fig Newton shavings coming off the side. Then I put a Newton catcher and empty that bag out as a snack. What the hell are they talking about? 2 Fig Newtons. With the size of a postage stamp. You want another one? Oh, I don't know. I've already had 2 whole entire Fig Newtons. Maybe I could try to muscle one more down, but I don't think I'm going to... I am stuffed with the Raptors. They're nuts. We got an ER here. We got a 3 Fig Newton eater. How many did he have? What is he, nuts? Doesn't he read?
Doesn't he read is something I quote all the time too, and that for some reason is the bit every time that I think of every time I see Oreos. I have no idea why. And
what is he, nuts?
and again, going back to facial expressions and like physical comedy, his reaction. Again, you can hear it, which he's great at. Mm-hmm. And we heard Steve Martin talk about this in the episode a few weeks ago, where he's like, he was talking about the albums, Steve Martin's album selling, and someone passed on them because they were like, hey, he's too visual a comic. But what happened was when he actually put the albums out is people got the joke and then were like, I want to know what is getting that reaction. Because obviously they're reacting to some expression. I want to go to his live show and see it. So it almost worked doubly better for him.
Right. They pay for it and then go see it again.
Yeah, right. And so Regan's got that where it's like, oh, I wonder what they're laughing at there if you're just listening to it. But yeah, 20 years later, people will still, not even knowing who Brian Regan is, will still be like, can you believe a serving size of whatever cookies is 2 cookies? And it's like, yeah, Brian Regan broke that news like 20 years ago. But yeah, I think that's the thing I love about him. And it's where I push back when people are like, oh, this guy talks about airplanes and shit like that, which we'll hear Regan do, I think, later. But it's like, I don't think there's a topic that's hack, you know? Mm-hmm. Even like when, we're going to get stricken on YouTube if I say this wrong. Hold on, let me think. A lot of people are starting their specials with the thing that happened 3 years ago that we all stayed inside for. I don't want the blue mark on Spotify, so I'll say it that way. Right. But like a lot of people, like when we brought up Renan Hirschberg's special, a lot of people will talk about that issue. I think Renan had a very funny, kind of unique take on it, which makes it different. So I don't think there's a hack topic to bring up. Like, oh, this guy just talks about food and the doctor and the airport. It's like, yeah, but he's doing something that Paul Reiser was never able to do, you know?
Make people laugh.
Yeah,
right. Next we got dairy.
Okay. Yeah.
I have to lay off dairy, though. That's what my doctor threw in as I was leaving his office. Oh, and lay off dairy. I'm like, what the hell? What kind of blanket sweep is that? And no more happiness. Away with you. What does he care? I'm trying to lay off dairy. I'm in the supermarket with my little cart, and I'm trying to avoid the dairy aisle. I can see they all have party hats on over there. I'm in the juice aisle, slooped over with juice people.
He paints such an amazing picture, and that's what I think Gary Goldman is also great at, where like you get exactly what he's trying to say. Never has anyone been in the grocery store and thought, yes, I'm going to head over to dairy now. But you also completely get what he means, and the visual is hilarious. Looking longingly over at the dairy section.
His facial expressions kill me. They're so fucking funny.
Yeah. And that's what people love about Maniscalco. It's like we're naming all these guys. Gary Goldman is another Regan example where it's like, I think Brian Regan and Gary Goldman are so much funnier than a lot of the guys that have taken influence from them. It's crazy that they're not more popular, but then you could argue maybe that's what Regan wanted, like, because he didn't seem to do a ton other than stand-up.
The beauty of this special, too, is he makes it all sound like it just happened in a day.
Yeah, and Andy's great at, I noticed this about Bargatze's last special. He's great at giving it kind of a through line that makes it seem like this is all related.
Right.
Like he's like, I want to talk about food, the doctor, airplanes, and, Pop-Tarts. But he makes it all seems related because he kind of puts it in a box of like him going through his life, basically.
I'll finish this. This is still dairy.
Oh, okay.
Juice aisle, and that is, I don't know what's going on with cranberries, but they're getting in all the other juices. Whoever the salesman is for cranberries does a great job. He's showing up everywhere. Hey, what do you got, apples? Put some cranberries in them. We'll call it cran apple, go 50-50. What do you got, grapes? How about cran grape? What do you got, mangoes? Cran mango. What do you got, pork chops? Cran chops. Why don't you back off, cran man? Why don't you take your sales trophy and have a vacation?
Have a vacation. If only, go back and listen to the Ron and Fez episode if you don't get this reference. But if only Fez Whatley had that in his memory, in his holster, when he brought up during the Great Blueberry Incident.
Oh, I know.
He could have just gone into a rant about cranberries. It would have been perfect.
Oh, that would have been funny.
What's next?
Pop-Tarts.
This, to me, like I said, Big Yellow One in the Sun is the one that everyone references.
Yep.
The Pop-Tarts bit, I think, is referenced most in, like, life. It's another one where, again, I'll hear people unironically doing it, where they talk about stuff on a Pop-Tart box or whatever the frozen food item might be. But let's hear it first.
My doctor also told me to, eat more fruit. So I had some Pop-Tarts this morning. Nice thin layer in there. You ever look at a Pop-Tarts box? They have directions on there. Can there be a simpler food item than Pop-Tarts? Like if the directions weren't on there, would somebody, what the? How do I get that goodness in me? What do you do? How do you get it done? You read, man. That's what you do. They have two sets of directions. In case you don't understand one set, you abandon that whole track and get on something a little easier for yourself. They have a set of toaster directions, which, believe it or not, is more than one step. How could there possibly be more than one step? I can only think of one. Step one, toast the Pop-Tarts. Go ahead, toast them. Hey, are you still reading this? But they've managed to break them into smaller increments. These are some of the actual steps. I would love to be in the room watching somebody who has to consult these toaster steps. Okay, number one, Remove pastry from pouch. I see where they're going with this. We're banging on all cylinders now. Number 2, insert pastry vertically. They're reading toaster direction. You're going to throw the vertical concept at them? Then they have a whole set of microwave directions. That just blew me away that you could actually microwave a Pop-Tart. I mean, how long does it take to toast a Pop-Tart? A minute? If you want them dark? People don't have that kind of time. Listen, if you need to zap fry your Pop-Tarts before you head out the door, you might want to loosen up your schedule.
If you want them dark is such a funny thing a funny way to phrase that. The
Right.
idea, like, I like my Pop-Tarts burnt, like Jim Nance going to diners. but just the idea that Brian Regan, and there's more that like I cut out of that bit. So the idea that Regan looked at a box of Pop-Tarts and got, 5 solid minutes out of it.
I think, 5 at least.
It's pretty unbelievable.
Next is UPS.
This is hilarious. There is some stuff, like they say, we probably said this in the Seinfeld episode, 80% of Seinfeld episodes would be wiped out with the invention of the cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some stuff in Regan's stand-up. Like if you're a kid now, you're probably like, what the fuck is he talking about? So there are some things like just technology has, avoided these obstacles. But I still think this holds up and is very funny.
We just moved. I called UPS to ask them to help out with some boxes. And they're a good service, but you have to have information ready about your boxes before you even call them. I had no idea. I called them up. Yeah, how about 10 boxes? We come pick them up. We need to know the weight and the girth. Okay, goodbye.
Well, pause for a second. Just because already, so many times I have called up a place unprepared, not realizing how much information I needed.
Correct.
And I'm like, jeez. Can I just restart? Can I call you back tomorrow? Because this is going to take a while.
I didn't know I needed that. Like you call for a doctor's appointment, they need your insurance card. You're like,
oh boy. I can leave you on hold, but it's going to be a long one.
I got to find it.
Yeah. All right, keep going.
So I called back, we need the weight and the girth. Okay, I don't know what the weight is, and I don't know what girth means. So now what's the procedure?
And wait, what's the next clip before I say this?
The next clip is fridges.
Okay, I didn't know if the UPS bit is much longer.
Mm-hmm.
I figured there's only so much we could play of it, but it's literally again a 7-minute bit about him trying to weigh these boxes and getting on the scale and getting off the scale.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, the visuals he creates are masterful, honestly.
Oh, for
even
sure.
As a kid, I didn't have to send fucking packages or anything. I didn't know what the process was, but immediately he walked me through exactly what you would have to do to where I totally got what he was saying.
Oh yeah, the visuals he does are so funny. Like the next one, fridges, when he's pretending to be a refrigerator salesman, the faces and poses he does are so fucking funny. But
yeah, so this is like Craig said, dealing with refrigerators.
We needed a refrigerator for our new place, and I've never bought a refrigerator in my whole life. I went into the appliance store. There's like 900 of them lined up. There's a salesman there. What's this guy supposed to say about refrigerators? Well, you have this refrigerator right here. This keeps all your food cold for 600.
So after he shows each fridge, he like waves them on, like, come on, follow me. And it's just so funny.
You've got this refrigerator. This keeps all your food cold for 800.
He's just waving them on.
Right this way.
Check this out. 1400 keeps all your food cold.
And that's literally what sales is too. Like in Wolf of Wall Street, when DiCaprio says, "Sell me this pen." But essentially, what Jordan Belfort is saying there is like, bullshit me here, you know. Right. So the idea, like, it's very true that there's some poor sap at this time at a Sears or something that is like, what do I make up about this fucking refrigerator that sets it apart from the cheaper one?
Yeah, exactly. I will last longer.
And I think Craig had a good observation earlier too, that I don't even know if I really realized it. It is like he's walking you through a single day of his life, kind of, you know?
Yeah, like I love
the way he moves from activity to activity.
Yeah, like I mean, on other specials, he'll be like, I was doing this and I was doing that. This one is almost like a one-man show.
So On the Rocks, his Netflix special is, I think, on par with anything else he's done. Like, I think it's very good. And it's interesting. He talks about having OCD, and he does it in a hilarious way, obviously. But he goes through kind of like finding out he has OCD and all of that. And he was on Rogan promoting it. And he's like, yeah, you know, like, it was tough for me to decide whether I should like be that open about my life. So like I said, I don't know a lot about Brian Regan, and just the fact that he had OCD is like, do I admit this on stage? You know,
well, people look at me different.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just goes to show you there are a lot of different ways. Like, you know, everyone tries to make a set of rules for like what's funny and how to be funny and all of that. And I think generally we think you have to be super personal. And it's the reason a lot of podcasts are successful, is because you're getting a peek into these guys' lives and gossip behind the scenes, and there's real confrontation and things like that. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are like, you have to be very personable to relate to your audience. Regan, everything is pretty surface level, and still he's able to relate to you very well.
Yeah, it's all. He's so fucking funny. But next one is phones.
This is probably a better example of what I was talking about with technology. He's he moved. He's trying to set up his phone. So for you kids out there were once landlines. Your phone did not take pictures or anything like that. You had to go through the phone company to get it. So that's what he's referring to.
I heard a landline ring the other day. I was at a family member's house.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do you still have this?
My neighbor has, when I hear it ring, if I have my windows open sometimes. It's very bizarre.
Like, you have that strictly for telemarketers to call.
What year are you from?
I also had to get the phone turned on. I'm at my friend's house. I call the phone company. Can you turn on our telephone? Okay, it's going to be a problem. I figured. Wow, what? It's just going to be a big nightmare. That's our policy. It's going to be a nightmare. Something about hell on earth. It's different than I thought. I didn't know how it worked, so I asked him, how does that work? Do we have to wait in our home for a few days for the phone people to come out? No, we do it differently now. We can just flip the switch from right here. Oh, great. Can you go ahead and flip it? We're going to flip it next Thursday. Can you flip it right now? We're going to flip it Thursday, late, or Friday, or sometime in November. Can you see it from where you're at? Can I come down and flirt?
I've moved a bunch since I've lived out here. And so every time I move, I think of that with like turning on electricity or whatever. It's like, why does this have to be a thing? Especially not 20 years later after this DVD came out. Like 20 years later, it's still a thing where it's like, we're just going to make you work for it, you know?
It's going to be a nightmare.
I figured. It's just accepting, which is, again, like it's very, you know, subtle and well done, but it is like a commentary on how we've all accepted it. Like, we're like, yeah, no, I figured. Don't worry about it.
Obviously. Next is confirmation codes.
Yeah, this was probably, I was going to say it was probably more prevalent back in the day, but I did hear, so my girlfriend is not from this country and her name is a bit hard to spell. I think I told this story on Blind Mike Project once, but I was listening to her. So you go like, you know, STF, whatever. Mm-hmm. And, like obviously the person on the other end is like getting it wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So you said FDS and then she's like, no. And she's going back and forth for 10 minutes. And then like, if this were to pull off this acting job, you would need Meryl Streep because her voice just starts to subtly, no, I said S-T. Like slowly starts like she's just been broken after repeating this 4,000 times.
Yeah, I remember this story.
She starts to well up. So it's an exhausting process that people have to go through to say letters over the phone sometimes.
My wife still does that too. She does not cry while doing it, but she'll do exactly what he does, like D as in dog. He's like, oh,
yes. Yeah, right. Oh, well, that's so. Like I said, English isn't her first language, so sometimes you know D as in dog. She's like D as in, Christ.
D as in desk. Just, what was that mask?
I had to use a phone to book the flight to come here, and the reservationist gave me a confirmation code. And like I'm an idiot, she gives it to me like this. Mr. Regan, your confirmation code, jot this down. It's B as in boy. Oh, okay. P as in Paul. Slow down. K as in kite. Oh, I know kite. I know all about kite. And Q as in quagmire. Give me another word. I want to fly so badly. I called back to confirm the flight. She wanted to know the confirmation code. I don't know about you, but I feel like an idiot trying to quickly come up with the words for letters, and I'm panicking on the phone. The confirmation code, it's B as in, oh man, baked beans. P as in pneumonia. K as in Gaddafi. Q as in Gaddafi. They only do that with letters. Nobody ever does that with numbers. My code, it's 4 as in 423. 2 as in 2,941. No, 47.
And I'll have that. I wish I knew what is like the military, like Alpha, Beta, whatever the fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Alpha, Bravo. I mean, all those.
Yep.
I wish I just knew that, because there have been instances where I'm like, K is in, I don't know. What are you going to hear, Crap? What's the best word to give the example of what I'm saying?
Yeah, so just be like Alpha, Beta, Charlie.
Yeah.
Whatever.
All right. What's next?
Next we have boarding planes.
So yeah. So this is like I said. People are like, "Oh, airplane material is hack," but not if you do it in the way Regan does. And there is a thing of like comedians are flying every week, so these are going to be the observations they come up with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like this is what they're doing most in their lives. So as long as you come up with a interesting spin on it.
I feel bad for the gate agents because they try to get the boarding process to run smoothly, but no one will listen to them. Don't blame them. They try, they get on the intercom.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin boarding. If we could ask for your cooperation, would you all please remain seated until your row has been called? Everyone, please remain seated. Everyone, please back away from the gate. Please back away from the gate.
Somehow, by the time that comes out the speakers, it must sound like, everybody up and rush the door. Everyone, immediately try to squish your fat butt simultaneously in the small gate door area. Hurry. Push and shove, everyone. Push and shove. Do whatever you have to get on board. This is the last helicopter out of Vietnam. I'm embarrassed to be human. You're gonna get on. Why?
I literally do this too because, I'm disabled, so I can get on the plane before everyone else. But I will get up like aggressively early. I'm like, not only will I be the first one on this plane, I'll be first you're not going to be through security by the time I'm on the plane.
You're sick of waiting. You just want to sit and be like, all right, I did it. I accomplished everything.
Yeah. Hey, listen, Brian, they drive us to be animals. All right.
I do like though that the thing that's nice though is he does take a different approach at the airport when he's basically talking about someone else. It's not even him.
Right.
I do.
Well, he has it on a different. It might be a epitome of hyperbole, where he has a different bit about airplanes. Where he's like, "How come you never hear?" The pilot gets on the intercom and says, "We are fourth out of the gate today, so it'll just be a few more minutes." It's like I'd like a confident pilot that gets on and says, "They're saying we're fourth in line. I say we're number one. Let's do this."
Yeah. I say we're going now. I think I'm going to watch that today. Epitome of hyperbole.
Folks, look for an episode in about 6 months when we have. We need to pull out an episode fast.
This one we got eye exams.
This one I can relate to a little more. I know exactly what he's talking.
I was going to say, did you pick this for any particular reason?
So I go in there, I sit in that big chair, he slides that big giant thing on my face. Are these my glasses? What happened to me? That'd be a hell of a pair of glasses. Do I like it better like this or like this? I like this one, but I want to see that one again. That one's pretty good, but let's go back to that one. Click, 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 click. I hate that test because I can't commit. I can feel my eye doctor losing his patience with me. Let's try it again, Brian. Which one do you like better, number 1 or number 2? I don't like either one of those. Yeah, but that wasn't the question I asked, was it? I asked you which one you like better, and I was careful to phrase it that way. So why don't you keep that in mind while we try it yet again? Which one do you like better, number 1 or number 2? They're about the same. Well, why would I waste your time and mine by making them both the same? Did you ever stop to think about that? You ready to try it one more time? What do you want from me? Way too much pressure during that entire exam. They do one test every time. I don't know what they're looking for. All I know is I get an anxiety attack in the middle of the damn thing. Tell me the exact moment point A is directly over point B. I'm like, Now! No, now! Then! I don't know what happened. I'm worried if I'm off by an eighth of a second, I'll get these big, giant Hubble coming attraction glasses. So you must have messed up that A/B test. Did I ever? Grand opening. What are they helping me with? My ability to watch cars pass on the highway? They pass now! And they pass now! Man, how do you do it?
I relate to that so much, where like the eye doctor was miserable for me as a kid. Now I get through it a little easier, but like when I was young, you felt this pressure and there's no reason for it. Like they are trying to help you. They're trying to help you see better. Yet, like, I would feel this pressure of like, oh man, I don't want to tell him neither one of these help me, so I'm going to lie. Like, I think one, and he's like, is one better, or are you just saying that? Like, I don't know.
Which one do you want me to say?
Yeah. I thought there was a right answer. And he like encapsulates that perfectly. And like why I love that bit so much, and just Regan's style I love so much, because it's a much, much tamer version of like, you know, the Archie Bunker type of syndrome. Is like Archie Bunker would never be allowed as a character now. No. Because we've forgotten that he's the idiot. But that was the point, is that he's the idiot, although you can relate to him. And in that bit, Brian is very smart about like the doctor comes off as like the noble hero in that little story. You know, he's like, do you ever think about that, Brian? Why would I waste your time and mine? Like he's trying to help him. Yet we relate to Brian because it's like, I do know how he feels, even though we're wrong. You know,
we're probably all pissing off the doctors.
Right. Yeah. Right. Like I get, you know, both sides, but you relate to Brian because he's the sap in the situation.
Next we got one-uppers.
And this is, you know, I think we all know people like this.
Sure.
So
I think we all know people like this.
I think we did an episode about people like this on the Blind Mike Project a couple weeks ago.
We did an episode like this on Very Good Show like last week.
Oh, well, there you go. Go listen to that, folks. Verygoodshow.org. Now let's hear Brian.
I was just one-upping you, that's all.
So I tried to jump in with a little story. I don't want to just sit there the whole night. Right when I'm done with my story, this guy goes, that ain't nothing. Didn't mean to waste everybody's time. Telling my nothing story. Here, let Marco Polo speak. He's back with tales of adventure. My story ain't nothing. Maybe it wasn't, because I made the mistake of trying to tell a story about having only 2 wisdom teeth pulled, and I learned a lesson. Don't ever try to tell a 2 wisdom tooth story, because you ain't going nowhere. The 4 wisdom teeth people are going to parachute in and cut you off at the pass. Halt with your 2 wisdom tooth tail. You will never complete one, trust me. I'm trying to tell my story. You know, I had some wisdom teeth pulled. I had 2, but I had 4 pulled. Oh, okay. No 5, no 9. I had 9 wisdom teeth pulled. All of mine were impacted. They were all coming upside down. The roots were wrapped around my tongue, coming out my nose. They were tusks. I was a warthog. No anesthesia. They pulled them out with pliers. I was eating corn on the cob that afternoon. Pin the blue ribbon upon his chest. That knocks the socks off of my wisdom tooth tail.
Again, I know I keep saying it, but the phrasing, pin a blue ribbon upon his chest. Because the way he speaks is beautiful. But I literally have a specific buddy that I thought of, like hearing when I heard this bit again, where it's like, you'll spend 5 minutes telling a story and you can tell he's just waiting for you to get done. And it starts, that's nothing.
Everyone knows a guy like that.
And you know, they don't even mean to insult you, which is almost the more annoying thing.
They're very excited to be part of it.
Yeah, they're like, oh, that's nothing. And it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm just a fucking asshole then. I just completely wasted my time. I should have just said, hey, do you have a story about this topic? So we could get right to it.
So I'm going to talk about this. Anyone got a better story before I get into it?
So I don't feel like an idiot.
I would like you to go instead of me. Actually, that's a good way to go about it, so you don't have to talk.
Well, in general, because he's talking about dinner parties towards the end of the special here. And so in general, this is how it's weird when you listen to a guy like Regan, because like I said, he's so relatable. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, if everyone feels like this, why can't we all agree to change how we are? But it's just, there's a few people who just will never get it. And
societal norms, you know, that's all it is.
Yeah.
We're at the closer.
That's what I thought. Yes. I knew we were getting down to the end. So yeah, let's just hear how he closes out and we'll discuss it.
What is it about the human condition? People get something out of that. That's why I have a social fantasy. I wish I was one of the 12 astronauts who have been on our moon. They must love knowing they can beat anybody's story whenever they want. They can sit back quietly at a dinner party while some other person, some me monster's doing his thing, and let him go. Let him run with the line while you be quiet. Oh, really? Let him have his moment. Yeah, I'm a big traveler. I have my business all. I got my own global enterprise I got to check on. You know, driving in the Autobahn because I keep a fleet of sports cars over in Zurich. And I got a Swiss account that I got to check out. Mount Kilimanjaro expedition, might have to cancel that. You know, runways in Aspen are a lot shorter the first time you go in there. You know, that Pacific Rim Company, we're going to try to take that over. And global enterprise. I walked on the moon. Well, you have the floor, Moonwalker. You know, you mentioned driving on the Autobahn. That reminded me. Once I was driving in the Sea of Tranquility. In my lunar rover. And I, too, was worried about our speed till I remembered, wait, we're the only ones on the moon. You guys are great. Thank you very much.
And that was it. That's where the title came from, folks.
He said it.
It is. I feel like that's changed a little bit where special names aren't necessarily what... It's not a joke that you made in the special, you know?
Oh, you don't think Chris DiStefano's Speshy Weshy wasn't a bit?
Well, he said it, yes. There are some examples. but it has changed a little bit. But it used to be back in the day, like every album or special or whatever, although Delirious wasn't, and Raw, I guess. So maybe I'm wrong.
It was often, though.
Yeah, it was a lot more. It feels like it was a lot more often back in the day. But... you know, I mean, we've said it. I know I've repeated myself a lot, but people seem to enjoy the way we do these special breakdowns. So we'll do them from time to time. We'll definitely do Killing Him Softly, me doing stand-up, some others that we like. Of course, it's usually more fun to do ones we don't like.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So go to the Patreon, watch the Gringo Poppy thing we did a long time ago.
I was going to say, those ones you'll probably see on Patreon.
Yeah, those are a lot more fun, but it is fun to kind of break down the ones we like. So if it's not for you, I would say just avoid the next time you see us doing a full special breakdown. But I hope you guys enjoy the way we do those here, and we'll keep more coming if that's the case. But yeah, check out Brian Regan if you hadn't, because he's a very underrated guy and one of my favorites. But more importantly, I would suggest you all go to blindmike.net because it's a very hot item these days.
It's a great website.
You can find all the free links there. And if that's how you want to support us, if you'd be so kind, leave some 5-star reviews, subscribe on all platforms, as well as YouTube. Tap the notification bell, like, comment. All that helps the algorithm and helps us grow as a program. And if you want to throw a few dollars behind this thing, get on the ground floor. Say, I was there way back before the boys really took off to the moon. Then you can go to the Patreon, which is at blindmike.net as well, which we would appreciate.
And if you remember January when we friggin' survived the 500 subscriber drop.
Yes, we're back over 500 again. So thank God. So let's get to 600. What do you say?
Yeah.
And also go to verygoodshow.org. That's where you can find the Craigster and his band of merry men that he mentioned.
Come on.
Anything else I wanted to say about Brian Regan? I feel like I'm missing something.
If you like laughter and lighthearted humor and don't want to think about anything stupid like politics, go listen to any of his specials.
Well, he's an interesting guy, too, because he could do, like I said, he's been on Rogan. He was a frequent guest on Opie and Anthony. And it's interesting because for a guy to do that and not, Ron Bennington's a lot like that. Mm-hmm. Where like now Ron does a show with his daughter and you still barely know anything about his personal life.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's a unique talent to be part of that world and not open up about yourself in some way. Like that's very impressive that that Regan's been able to do that for so long. And I had one more thought. And if I stall long enough, it'll pop back into my head.
Yep. Well, I had two more thoughts.
Oh, go ahead.
I've been doing this for like the last 10 minutes. I'm just one-upping you on purpose.
Oh, I see. One of Craig's great bits that went over my head.
Yeah, the last one did too. And I said something we talked about on a very good show last week.
Well, folks, for more hijinks like that, go to blindmike.net. Take luck. And we will talk to you next time on Why Are You Laughing?